Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to Thursdays with Friends. You may hear some thunder and rain behind me. It is being quite dramatic in DC right now. So hopefully the power stays on. This is Thursdays with Friends, our online conversation on current issues. In 2 weeks, Congress will resume its session after their summer recess. And so while members of Congress are at home, it's the perfect time to lobby them on our priority issues. The show's producer, Wesley Wolf-Pinkham. And here's our chat host for Thursdays with Friends, FCNL General Secretary, Diane Randall, and her guest, Barbie Izquierdo, star of the movie A Place at the Table.
Well, thank you very much, Bobby, and welcome, friends. It is good to be back with you here at the end of August as we wait Congress to come back on a full-time basis. I will just note, not the subject of today's conversation, but we are watching with heavy hearts what is happening in Afghanistan, as we have been watching for the week. And we know that war is not the answer. It never has been, and we will continue to claim that and name it and lobby against the military actions that cause violence. With that, I want to turn to a very special guest and a very special issue for FCNL to work on that we have been working on. Many of you have actually been advocating for this on this issue during this break that we've had with Congress, and we thank you for that. You know that part of our vision is to seek a community where every person's potential may be fulfilled. And that means eliminating the crisis of poverty that steals the dignity and quality of life for tens of millions of people in this country and throughout the world. It is possible to expand opportunities for all people to have adequate resources to maintain health, dignity, and economic security. It is possible to create equitable economies that are more productive, sustainable, efficient, and fair. It takes political will and political action. And that's what we're about. To achieve these goals, we call for actions by Congress that reduce economic disparities, including income and wealth inequality, structural impediments to providing fair employment opportunities. We want economic security for all people. And in particular, and today, we are going to talk about our call for a permanent extension to the proven programs that lift children and families out of poverty. That's the Earned Income Tax Credit and the Child Tax Credit. So this week has been an important week for economic justice on Capitol Hill. After intense negotiations, the House of Representatives passed a $3.5 trillion budget resolution, which establishes a framework that is actively being fleshed out by committees on the Hill as we speak. Congress is crafting recovery legislation that has the potential to significantly reduce poverty, broaden opportunity, and increase racial equity in the United States. This is historic. It's unlike anything that's been done recently. You have to go back to the Johnson presidency in the 1960s to find proposals at the breadth and scale of what President Biden and Democrats have put forward in this budget. The expectations are high. If the recovery bill passes, the federal government would provide 2 years of pre-K, community college, and expand healthcare coverage. It would invest in childcare and establish a federal paid and medical leave program. It would invest in clean energy incentives and make strides to address climate crisis. It would bring more fairness and equity to our tax system by making corporations and very wealthy people pay their fair share. It could provide a pathway to citizenship for dreamers, TPS recipients, agricultural workers, and essential workers. It truly is historic. So one of the best ways to explain this historic budget is to learn directly from the lives of people who will benefit from this expansion. And I am really pleased to have as my guest today, Barbie Izquierdo, an advocate, a consultant, and currently community network manager of Hunger Free America. As Wesley mentioned, she was featured in the documentary A Place at the Table, which showed the extent of hunger in the country and what families and advocates like her are doing about it. So many things have happened since then, and today, at 33 years old, Barbie has completed her associate's degree in criminology from Eastern University. She's finishing her college degree at Southern New Hampshire University. And she's also been advocating in the halls of Congress and talking to groups, both in the US and abroad, about her struggles as a single mother, raising two children with the help of federal assistance like the child tax credit and income tax credit. She spoke at our 2018 annual meeting, some of you will remember her, where she was offering expertise on the SNAP food assistance program. Welcome back, Barbie. We're pleased to have you on Thursdays with Friends.
Thank you so much, Diane. It's a pleasure to be back. Thank you for, for this opportunity and for inviting me to speak on this very important topic.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you have been up to in the last 3 years since we talked. We found out that you've recently moved, but tell us a little bit more about growing up and about your family.
Sure. So I started my advocacy journey when I was 19 years old through a program called Witnesses to Hunger. What that was I was given a camera and asked to take pictures of my life so that Dr. Mariana Chilton, the person who started the program, can go and show people at Congress what it looks like to live in poverty. She said that when she would go and testify at Congress, that because she was a very well-educated white woman, that she felt like she wasn't being taken seriously when it came to the concerns regarding communities that she didn't live in. So I began as a storyteller, just informing people how expensive it is to be poor and how, living in poverty contributes to so many different issues, that you're affected by so many issues when you're living in poverty. There's so many different social determinants of health that are affected, not just food insecurity, but housing insecurity, just a lack of nutritional education and a bunch of other things that affected my family. Through my pictures, I showed my struggle in feeding my kids. There were definitely times where I explained to people that I had coined the phrase read eating. And what that meant to me was that when I didn't have enough to feed my kids and I had to choose between feeding them and feeding myself, that of course I would feed my children. And what I would do was go to another room and look at pizzeria menus and just look at the pictures and think about, well, today I would have this cheeseburger, and on Wednesday I would love to have had this pizza, and just feeding my brain these pictures until I wasn't hungry anymore. Today, my life is very different from that. I've been able to establish a career through consulting and helping organizations help incorporate people with lived expertise and living experience into their frameworks, so that there's a true understanding of what it's like and what the needs of the communities are. I grew up in a very impoverished neighborhood in North Philadelphia that was very dangerous. I raised my children up until Sunday in Philadelphia. We've recently moved to Florida. My children are now 14 and 15, and our lives have been completely changed by being featured in the documentary. It absolutely was a struggle for me. I always knew that what I did was hard, and I always felt like what I was doing was the right thing. But internally, as a mother, as a person, as a human, I felt very undignified. I felt very embarrassed and ashamed that it took for me to go on camera and literally show people what it was like not being able to feed myself and my children, for them to understand that there's people out there with amazing potential, who are really smart, who are born into certain circumstances and have, the cards stacked against them. And no matter how much we try to overcome and that the barriers are just so much. And it's a constant fight on wanting to know your worth and feeling like you want to give up and feeling like the world just doesn't understand, or feeling like you're begging for assistance when all you're trying to do is make ends meet, and also battling the stigma of, being a young single mom, being Hispanic, coming from where I come from. It's been very, very, very difficult. And I'm blessed to say that, now, because of all of my consistent years in this fight, that people are taking this topic more seriously and actually realizing how there's so many things that are affected by poverty and food insecurity.
Mm-hmm. Barbie, a couple of things I just want to draw out from what you said is that one of the, I think, really positive aspects of advocacy that we know is true is people telling their stories, and the stories of people most directly affected by unjust policies, to be able to explain why changing those policies has a benefit and what it means for you as a mom, what it means for your children, for their lives today and for their future lives, to be able to not have to make the kinds of choices you've had to make in some cases. I think, as parents, we're always making choices, but not everyone has to make the choices about whether they can feed their kids or feed themselves, or whether they can continue to live in a home, or whether they're going to be evicted. And, one of the things that we know that is so exciting about the child tax credit and the earned income tax credit and the changes that came about in the American Rescue Plan that passed earlier this year is that the child tax credit began as a monthly benefit for really millions of households, that is basically like a guaranteed income for households to know that they're going to have that amount of money coming in. Hopefully there won't be glitches. And you shared with us a little bit of sometimes there can be problems, but overall, if you've filed, with the income, or if you filed with the IRS, that money is going to appear in your bank account, and you have that money to spend. And in fact, when that started in July, it was a significant percentage of families that began spending immediately on food, which is pretty interesting. So that kind of guaranteed income, I'd love to hear you talk about what knowing that means, because right now, the American Rescue Plan passed, included funding for that to last only through December of this year, only through December. And so our advocacy is saying, this should be permanent. This should not be something people have to guess whether they're going to have income coming in, but we should support families with children. We should be investing in children, every child in this country. So I'd love to hear you talk about the idea of what the constancy of a guaranteed income through the child tax credit means to you, what you've seen it mean to other women and families.
Absolutely. And at a time that's so that it's so needed. So many people have been out of work due to COVID and have to already replace something that, they were used to having. You're used to working a certain amount of hours, what your income is going to be, and then something happens and all of a sudden it's not the same. And you have to pick and choose literally what bill is going to go unpaid and get on these payment plans and have bill collectors harassing you, or having to choose between buying medication and, feeding yourself or feeding your children. They're all very, very difficult decisions. And when you grow up in poverty, it's always a juggle. You're used to making these decisions. You're used to trying to make things stretch. But when you have this assistance that is coming to you that you don't have to beg for, that you don't have to prove to someone that you're worthy, or that you need it, when everyone in the country can see that, we are in need right now. It's something that absolutely helps people. For myself, I haven't qualified for food stamps in over 10 years now. But when I was told about the earned income child tax credit and that it was coming, once a month, that was my first thought was, I have these growing teenagers that are bigger than me, and this is going to help me be able to allow them to be able to eat the nutritious food that they need without me having to take away from another bill. Now, there are people who haven't been able to pay their rent. and that rental assistance is running short, or they may not qualify for it. There's people out there that, weren't able to file taxes because they didn't make enough money to file taxes, that can be missing out on this because they don't know how to navigate the system and how to fill out an application or to find out how they're eligible. And to me, it's just to know that there's so many people out there who are benefiting from this, and that it genuinely, truly is helping them, and that this is done in other countries. I had worked with someone before in Finland, and they said when you have a child, that no matter what your income is, that you receive a certain amount of money that helps you with from the government. That it's like, well, why aren't we doing it here? Why is it that people have to feel degraded in order to get this assistance? Like, asking for help is very, very, very difficult. So to have this as easily accessible, that it's already in your bank account and that you can just go and purchase the things that your family may need is truly a blessing, and something that we absolutely need to make permanent.
Amelia and I were talking earlier today about this, and about the, when we think about the countries that we admire a lot and we aspire to have the same standard of living for all people, it often is the countries where, children are supported from infancy, regardless of income, through federal support, like Finland or Norway, where there's a kind of willingness to recognize that every human being born is worthy, and therefore we need to provide the kind of foundational supports that allow for healthy, productive lives to flourish. And one of the things that we've often been resistant to in this country is the idea that government, that's a handout. People tend to use that term sometimes. And yet I really believe that this, and I think FCNL believes this, and I think the people on this call who have advocated with their members of Congress understand that in a way it's an investment. I mean, we talk about investing in, corporations, or we talk about investing in, the military. We invest in so many things with our federal tax dollars. This is a really good investment because it's an investment in people, and it's an investment in our future by investing in children. I just want to say, I want to talk to just a second about the tax credit, and then just love to hear you, say more about that. But the recovery bill that provided funding that passed earlier this year provides payments of up to $300 for each child under 5 and up to $250 for each child under 18. And that was in the American Rescue Plan. But the work that we're doing, the advocacy that we're doing right now, and I know that this action is in our, will be in the chat here, and I think it was posted before, is that we want to assure that these tax credits, both the child tax credit and the earned income tax credit, are made permanent, that they don't expire in December. And that's what we want to see as part of this very large bill that is being discussed right now. That's going to go through with reconciliation. And, Amelia tells me that on the Hill, these committees are really actively talking about, like, what will we include? How long will we include these provisions? And so the voices of people in the communities, both the people who are directly benefiting from programs, but those of us who care about assuring that programs are there to support people, it is so important for you to be in contact with your members of Congress. So I hope you'll go to our website and take this action. And I hope you'll share it, especially those of you who are part of Quaker meetings, or if you're part of another church, that you'll share this, because this truly is also, from our perspective, my perspective, this is an article of faith. I mean, that we should be caring for every single person, and that there is that of God in every person. And one way that we can express that is through the dignity of having income. Bobby, do you want to say a little bit more about, one of the other things that we have long advocated for, and you've mentioned, is the SNAP program and the food assistance program. I think one of the things that I understand that you're doing is also working with other people who are accessing these programs. And I don't know if you want to share anything else about what that's like in your community work.
Sure, absolutely. So I currently work for Hunger Free America. I'm their community empowerment manager. So what that means is that I look for people on a national level that are willing to share their stories and share their experiences but also moving away from the transactional aspect of it. Like I'm not looking for someone around Thanksgiving who, I'm looking for funding. So I'm going to look for a sad story and give them a turkey and that's it. No, what we're trying to do is incorporate the insight that people who are, going through poverty and that have experiences with these programs, so that we can learn and so that we can express to Congress and change policies so that people can understand how hard these processes are, like in just being eligible, and how hard it is to go into an office and to bring all of your expenses, all of your bills, and to not be able to have all of those things counted because of the federal guidelines, and how you can literally be showing someone how much you are in need and still end up empty-handed. It's a very, very difficult situation. So aside from talking to them about their stories, we also help them with benefits access. So that means that people that we're talking to are learning how to fill out food stamp applications for the SNAP program for other people. So now the person who was receiving the benefit can go out to the communities and say, listen, I know what it's like, and I can also help you and teach you how to go through the process, what information you're going to need. If you need any help with advocacy, let's say that you were receiving benefits and for some reason were cut off. Well, now you have someone who can help you, who is trained not only with their own living experience, but with the information that they need on the back end to be able to help, administratively. It's been amazing to see right now, Hunger Free America. So the program is called Food Action Boards, and the people who participate are Food Action Ambassadors. Right now, they're solely based in New York. It's the one that has already been established, and I've been hired to expand that. But to see these women testify at Congress and share their stories and talk about, what it's like to live in their shoes, and to see how they're being taken seriously and how they're forcing Congress to listen because they won't know any other way. When I started my advocacy at Congress, not just, on a local level and talking at schools and places of worship, but when I was actually lobbying on the Hill, what I learned is for every one phone call that someone from Congress or a state representative receives from their constituents, they estimate that one phone call and that thought to be the thought of between 200 and 300 of their constituents for one phone call. So imagine if we just made 6 or 7 or 8, how they will be forced to think about, when they're deciding what bills or where to cut funding from. If they have this insight, they can understand how many people they're affecting, how many lives they're affecting. And really quickly, just to tie this to a personal story, my son was born with an immune deficiency, and it's documented in A Place at the Table. And for so long, and still to this day, I don't have the medical education to really understand how much of my lack of access to nutritious food and affordability to nutritious food contributed to my son's medical issues. So if we work on these problems from the get-go, then we wouldn't have to worry about that. It's so expensive. It's so much more expensive to have to deal with these medical conditions in the long run than to just make sure that everyone is receiving healthy, nutritious food and the assistance that they need when they need it.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that story, Barbie. That's really, it is true. I mean, if we can, I noticed Elaine put a note in there about living in Sweden and just from birth, if from birth we actually were providing the kind of support that families need, we know that it could make a tremendous difference in our country. And it's just, sometimes we get used to the status quo. We get used to the idea, there are poor people and, they'll get by. But just imagine, just really imagine if we could provide this kind of support. Tens of millions of families would have a different life. And so that's why this, it's such an urgent time now. And I think what I just want to also say, just to your point about the phone calls into the offices, we're going to find a lot of members of Congress who will agree that the Earned Income Tax Credit Program and the Child Tax Credit Program are good. In fact, there are a lot of Republicans who've supported these, along with Democrats. What we're really needing to do is to show how essential it is that these stay in, that they're funded for a long period of time, because in a sense, there's going to be a competition about what to fund in this reconciliation bill and for how long. And so the more that we can lift up these particular programs that provide such an investment for families and children, the better. And it's not that there are bad things in it, but we just know that there's going to be some arguments. I do want to make sure that I want to know, Lolita had a question, and then I think someone on our staff might be able to help know of organizations helping families who do not have bank accounts or file taxes, because there has been a real effort to assure that people who aren't, on the IRS tax rolls, also, as you noted, Barbie, who haven't filed recently, haven't had adequate income, there is a way for those people to get earned income tax credit as well. So I don't know whether Stephen or Jim or somebody can see if you can find that. I do know that the Center on Budget Policy Priorities also has some information about that. So we'll try to get that to you. The other thing I wanted to be sure that we touch on is that if there are any other questions, we want to make sure that we take those. And then I need to do a time check. We're kind of running out of time here. So I want to make sure, Barbie, that you've been able to say what you want to share about these programs and about advocacy. Only that I'm so grateful to you for coming on today, but also for the work you do to be empowered, to really work with other people and empowering people to share their stories. That's really, really amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Sure. I just honestly, truly feel blessed. What I do is very, very, very difficult. I have to get in a room sometimes, well, most of the time before COVID, standing in front of hundreds, thousands of people and, strangers, and letting them know that I struggle with feeding my kids, and that, I've grown up in these horrible situations, but I'm blessed to be that person that actually has a platform. There's so many people that I grew up with that I know that whose circumstances are way worse than mine. And they're intelligent, great people who will never make it out of poverty because of their circumstances. And it's not that we don't want to work, and it's not that we don't care about the community. It's that people don't look for us. It's harder to find the potential of people who live in poverty when we're not included in the conversations. I'm lucky enough to be invited to these spaces and these rooms to represent them. But it's a really heavy responsibility to feel like you have, so many people to represent, and that you want them to have the same opportunities that you do. So when I come, I just try to be as honest and open and vulnerable as I can, so that people can have a true understanding. It's not just young people. There's grandparents that I know who are raising, their grandchildren and have to choose between their medications and feeding their grandchild, or that have struggled with transportation and are struggling to make ends meet, but because of their age they may not qualify for certain things, or can only use programs that are catered for a certain age, that hinders them from getting the help that they actually need. So as difficult as this is, I just feel very grateful that I have the opportunity to raise awareness on these issues. Yeah, thank you.
Well, you're an amazing spokeswoman. You are representing well, and I think it's an encouragement to all of us to listen in a deeper way, and to find ways to share this story. Will you say, I know you have 2 kids. Do you want to say anything about them, just to tell us? Because when you spoke at annual meeting, they were quite a bit younger, and you're teenagers now, as you noted. You were sharing they're bigger than you are.
Yes, they are. My kids are truly, truly, truly amazing. They have witnessed and experienced a lot of trauma in their lives. And I didn't think I was gonna get emotional. They have been with me every step of the way. What I do in exposing the things that we've been through has been very hard for me as a mom, knowing that you know, when I'm gone, all of this information is going to be out there forever. And, you know, my daughter's in high school, my son's in 8th grade, so they can be made fun of. All of this stuff is very public. But what I have made sure to do is to talk to them about, again, being privileged to have this platform, and that, you know, I do this so that hopefully someday they won't have to go through this if they choose to have children. And that if I have to sacrifice my dignity, my self-respect, my self-esteem to raise awareness on these issues, that I will absolutely do so. And I've seen how much it affects them. I did a keynote for Philabundance in Philadelphia and had both my children present for the first time. And my son has social anxiety and got up and spoke in front of the crowd and just told them how proud he was of me. My daughter had her first job this summer with an organization in Philadelphia called Esperanza. And her job was literally working in the community, providing benches for people in low-income communities for them to be able to sit outside and beautify the neighborhood. So I got to see that, like, I told her my first job was working at a pizza shop and a water ice stand. So for her first job to be out there in the community making a difference, and for people to be telling her like, oh, Barbie's your mom. Oh my God, you're amazing, you're great. Like, I can already see how my work is influencing them and paying off. And if there's anything that I hope that they take away from all of this, is that I want them to really know that my heart is really in this. And if I can do this for the rest of my life, despite how emotional it may be, that I will do it, and that hopefully that sparks an interest in them to continue to care about their communities. I thought about running for office for some time. I've put those sort of dreams on hold. But you know, I just want to make them proud, and I want them to see that you can overcome anything that's in your way, because that's what they've seen me do.
Well, you are a woman of courage, and I can see why your children probably adore you and think you're amazing. So, and we are a nonpartisan organization, and we don't get involved in political campaigns, but I can tell you there would be a lot of people on this call who'd probably be pretty interested if you decided to run for office. So stay in touch, because we know that there are really important candidates. And we're kind of over here on time, but I just need to say that one of the remarkable things to me is watching some of the new people who've been elected to Congress and see, you know, I think of Representative Cori Bush from St. Louis area, you know, who did the, you know, sleep out on the Capitol steps around eviction prevention. And just that witness is so incredible, just like your witness is so incredible to us today on this call, but to the work that we're all about. So thank you again for being with us. Thank all of you for joining us. You are such faithful advocates, you're faithful donors. You mean so much to us. And we really, really are grateful that you're part of the FCNL community. And go call your member of Congress or get on your email and send a note, please. Follow through. Thanks so much. And we'll see you in 2 weeks. We're going to have Clarence on. Clarence, who's going to be talking, who does our environmental justice lobbying, is going to be talking about environmental justice. So very excited about that. We hope you'll be back with us then. We got a fall lineup ahead that will be featuring probably more of our own people, but we're really grateful to have Barbie here today. Thanks again, Barbie.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.